Hi there, I'm Ann Welker, Suffolk County Legislator for the South Fork, District Number 2, which goes from Montauk Point to Mauritius Inlet. And I'm delighted to be here today with Reverend Michael Smith of the Shinnecock Nation. And it is a pleasure to be here with you today. And, I was thinking as I was driving here, the way you always end all of your texts to me is with the word shalom. And that says so much. When did you start to do that? Do you remember?
It was the only thing I learned when I was in taking Hebrew in seminary.
Really?
Well, that's where I first kind of picked it up. But we're talking almost 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, probably within the last 10, 15 years started using the word shalom. It just because we need it nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that whole notion of peace and unity and oneness.
It's so true. And it's such, the first time I read it, when I saw that you had, sort of signed off, not with all the best or, have a good day, but with shalom, it really resonated with me, and it sticks with me, whenever I'm in conversation with you via text. It's such a good way to leave a conversation and go out into the world, is with that feeling of peace, because you're right, it's tricky now, navigating.
Yeah. It was just something that I just like the sound of it, and it's not just a word, it's a whole way of being, and it's that peace with, as we say, it's peace with God, peace with neighbor, and most importantly, peace with self. And so, shalom.
Right? Yeah, no, it's wonderful. Do you use it in conversation too, or mostly just when you're...
We're close friends. That's how we'll end our conversation, shalom, or we greet one another with it, because it's just like aloha, it's like ciao, it's hello and goodbye. It's that greeting, that all encompassing. Hello, goodbye.
Yep, it's a beautiful thing. So you said 40 years ago when you were in the seminary.
Yeah, well,
Where was that?
it's probably more than that. Well, it is more than that. It's close to 50 years.
Nobody's counting.
I was at Princeton from 1976 to 1979. I did my graduate work there at Princeton.
And that was the Presbyterian Seminary?
Yeah,
Help me with that a little bit.
Presbyterian Seminary down in Princeton, New Jersey, right across the street from Princeton University. And I remember the first time I went down there, I thought I was in Disneyland. It was just,
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so old and just,
Yeah.
wonderful.
So I spent 3 years there. And it was just an amazing experience for me, because the president of the seminary when I was there was James McCord, and he was the president of the World Alliance of Reformed Churches. And so he had access to all the international theologians, and they all came to Princeton and did some teaching there. So I had Alan Bozak as a professor, who was from South Africa, Erwin Moltmann, who wrote about hope. And it was an amazing experience. I started seminary a little bit older than my classmates. When I went to seminary, I was married and had 2 kids, and so that in itself was a unique experience. It was a good time. I think I learned a lot. I grew a lot, and it was a good time.
I always say about my yoga teacher training that I wish that everyone could go through yoga teacher training. I wonder if it's a bit like that with seminary. It changes people. So what would our world be like if everyone went through seminary? Maybe not to be a deacon or a minister or a reverend or to practice, but just to have that exposure such that you had. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, and in one sense, I mean, the terminology in the Presbyterian tradition is the pastor is a teaching elder. And, you know, that role of teacher, I think, is just absolutely vital. And I just have fun with it because I think our faith is just absolutely fascinating. Just the ability to, as Niebuhr said, an unexamined faith is not worth living. And that's our charge and challenge as believers is to, is to challenge and think and be and do.
I've been fortunate enough to not only be present at many of your sermons just in with regular services, but also at funerals. And I noticed that you almost always have a book that you reference a specific quote from in all of those. Is that something you usually do, or is that something you've done over time, or?
I mean, I basically started when I started my ministry. I did that. I think I shared with you once. I buy a lot of books. I don't read a whole lot of books, but I buy a lot of books. Matter of fact, on my way down here, I stopped and grabbed a book from Barnes and Nobles that I had ordered. But books are just absolutely fascinating. If you spend time thumbing through them, you will always find something that's appropriate to share regarding someone's life. And I mean, most of the sermon or the funerals that I've presided over, I mean, I've known the individuals, and so I look for something that we can remember him or her by. And oftentimes a writer can do much more than I can. So I have no problems borrowing other folks' stuff. So yeah, but that's just so vital is that sense of familiarity and friendship and yeah, I mean, I love that.
And what is your proper title now? I've seen it a couple different ways. I love one of them.
Well, Reverend Michael F. Smith, comma, HR, and then in parentheses, sort of. HR is honorably retired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I tell I'm failing miserably at retirement. But I've always said, I mean, for me, if I have to do a job, then I'm not going to work. And so I've never seen the ministry as a job. And it's something I enjoy. And I've always said that once I stop enjoying something, then it's time to move on. And no, I just enjoy what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I was lucky to be a participant in, along with probably hundreds of other people, the sunrise service on Easter morning that's ecumenical, and you spoke beautifully there. But that was the first time I saw in print, Reverend, because they had a little program and it said Reverend Michael Smith. I think it said Shinnecock. Yes, but I think it said Shinnecock Presbyterian Church, and then it said in parentheses, retired, sort of. Yes,
Yeah.
and just made me laugh because you say that all the time. That was the first time I'd seen it in
Well,
print.
that was the first time I've ever seen anybody print it too. I didn't even notice it was there until I think it was you who pointed it out.
Right?
Sort of.
Was Richie King behind that printing? I could certainly see
He
it.
probably had something to do with it, either him or the current pastor at that First Press, Paul Lent. One of them. I mean, it was probably Richie. Yeah.
That was a beautiful service, though, with so many people in attendance. It also helped that it was a nice day.
Yeah.
But I go sporadically to that. It's an early morning, but it's a really meaningful day.
And I mean, for me, it was too because the previous Easter, I was in the I spent Easter Sunday in the hospital. I had a mild heart attack that I had no, from my perspective, I didn't have any symptoms or anything because my mom had fallen and I kind of, I found her later in the afternoon, I stopped by, called her. She didn't answer, but she's 98 or 97, and it wasn't unusual for her not to answer. She was in the bathroom or still sleeping or taking care of some personal things, and so I left something on the table. And I came back a few hours later, and the thing was still on the table. So then I went to the back. I mean, I called her. I went to the back, and I saw her in one of the bedrooms. She had fallen and couldn't get up, and it's the res, so everybody knows everybody. By the time the ambulance got there, there were a whole host of people there, and so I asked if I could ride in the ambulance with my mother, and the EMT said fine, but little I know that some folks there had spoken with her, and so we get down to the hospital, and she says, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm fine." She said, "No, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm fine." And he said, "Well, how are you? No, how are you really doing?" I said, I'm fine." I said, I picked my mom up when she'd fallen, and I made the mistake of saying pain and chest, and he said, "Your mother's on the gurney. She's fine." So I'm
Come
calling.
with me.
Hmm?
Come with me.
Yeah,
Basically.
well, they didn't even say come with me. Just sit right there. I'm calling the triage nurse, and they're going to meet us with a wheelchair.
Oh my goodness! I did not know anything about this story.
So it's sad. It's Easter Saturday, and we had sunrise service Sunday morning, and then I was going to do the 11 o'clock at Shinnecock. So I tell the doctor, I said, I got to be out of here
A little
tomorrow morning,
busy.
6:30, and he says, "Well, that's a little bit early. We'll take a look at that test results, and we'll see where we go. 11 o'clock might be a possibility." He comes back an hour later and says, "Well, you can forget the 11 o'clock too, because according to the preliminary results, you've had a coronary episode," and so.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I had no idea that that's how all that had rolled out. So thank goodness then, fast forward to this year, you did, because I think you had a very busy day on Easter. You did sunrise service, and then where did you go after that? Did you go to Shinnecock or did you go to Bridgehampton?
Went to Bridgehampton real quick and then came back to Shinnecock.
So you made up for it.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Wow.
Yeah, and the OR was closed because it was a holiday weekend. So Monday morning they put a stent in, and Tuesday I was home. So, yeah,
And here you are,
here I am,
up and running. Right, literally
tired,
running.
sort of. Yeah,
Exactly, literally running. So it's somewhat ironic then that not only are you wearing your Stony Brook Southampton Hospital hat, but you also sit on the board of the foundation there? Help me with
no, Southampton Hospital Association Board.
association.
Yeah, and
Right. So what do they do?
well, right now their primary focus is raising funds to build the new hospital
At the
at the
college.
college.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you just opened, not even a week ago, the new ER in East Hampton.
It officially opened, I guess, last Friday, but we saw one as a ribbon cutting in April, beginning of April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's up and running, and I mean, healthcare is just something that I think is absolutely vital for this community. Well, east of the canal, I was born and raised east of the canal, and this is God's country, and. So health care is extremely vital. I mean, I was born and raised. I was born in Southampton Hospital, and the first female doctor was the person who delivered me, Emma Bellows.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Bellows.
Yes.
Yeah. She delivered me, and then my kindergarten teacher was Louise White, and her son is Merritt White, the doctor.
Oh.
So Merritt delivered my first son. So I mean, the East End is just, I mean, everybody knows everybody. Everybody's related, and it's an amazing place. You have to stay on your best behavior, but
For sure.
yeah. But it's an amazing place to be from and be part of, and I thank you for this opportunity of just sitting and sharing a little bit about that.
Right. And I was on Meadow Lane in Southampton this morning, looking north, actually, across at the Shinnecock Neck at the reservation. And that is such an incredible piece of land and a special place surrounded by special waters. And it really is just amazing. It's there are a few still left, but it's one of the few areas where you can look at waterfront property and see trees and shoreline.
Yeah, I mean, we've been blessed, and I mean that's one of the things that I think is absolutely vital for us is to appreciate that. I like I said, I was born and raised there, and never, I really didn't leave. I mean, the furthest I got from leaving the reservation was when I worked in Arizona, and that was right out of year after seminary. But we'd always spend the summer driving back. I had a 4-week vacation, so we would leave. It'd take us 3, 4, 5 days to drive out here, but we'd always come home in the summers that we were out there, and because it was home, and I want our kids to be immersed in the Shinnecock community. And I worked at Dartmouth for a couple of years, and every other weekend we were back down here. When I was in Princeton, we were up here just about every other weekend. So I mean, I've never really left home, and I think, like you said, it's one of the most beautiful pieces of real estate in the country.
Mm-hmm.
In the country.
Mm-hmm. I don't even think about it as real estate, really.
Yeah, well,
Like
land, our homeland,
yes,
the land of
yes,
our
exactly.
parents. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's an amazing gift that the Creator has given us, and it's our responsibility to care for that, and I take that fairly seriously.
I know you do.
Yeah, that's what I did my thesis on in seminary. It was the religious roots of Eastern land claims.
Really?
Well, it's because there was a culture clash when the immigrants came over. Native people saw the creation as a gift from the Creator to be shared. There was no notion of private property. It was ours to use during our lifetime, and that's the beauty of this place, and our charge and challenge is to preserve it as best we can, and yeah, we have a very close relationship with the land, with the earth, yeah.
Can we share a picture of the Shinnecock Presbyterian
Sure.
Church just so that people can see that? Because it's a beautiful church.
Yeah.
How old is it?
Well, the smaller section on the left-hand side, that's the original church.
Okay.
That was dragged across Shinnecock Bay.
Really?
In the winter, one winter. Shinnecock Bay used to freeze.
Yep.
Because it was primarily fresh water, and this is prior to the hurricane of '38. And so it would freeze, and some folks hitched a team of horses to a church that was on the other side, that was over in Hampton Bays, and they dragged it across Shinnecock Bay. And they set it up, and it used to face north and south, and the hurricane of '38 came and switched it. And so they raised it up and put a foundation under that, and then built a new section. The bigger section
Yep.
is with the little narthex. And the amazing thing about that is that if you've ever seen the inside of it, I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
But they built it in less than a year.
Really?
Yeah. The hurricane of '38 came through in October, September of '39, it was dedicated.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I mean, part of the funding to build the new church came from St. Andrew's Dune Church.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh.
They provide some funding for that
We
as well.
have a photo of that as well, because you are part of the summer. Explain about how that works in the summer. So the St. Andrew's Dune Church is just open in the summer. It's a seasonal church.
Yeah.
And
They have a visiting pastor every Sunday there. And I mean, I happen to know a number of the members there because my father was superintendent at Shinnecock Hills Golf Course, and many of the members at St. Andrew's Dune Church are also members at the golf course. And so I had they've known me. Some of them have known me since I was a baby, and we established a relationship. And like I tell folks, I mean, my dad bought his four sons a great deal of integrity, and we managed not to squander it all. And so some of those relationships still exist. A couple of the presidents of the board of trustees were members of the golf course, and they knew me. And I'd always wanted to, even as a kid, we'd ride by on Sunday mornings like you rode by, and I always wondered what it looked like on the inside, and had an opportunity of going in there. I mean, it was an awkward experience. Well, because the family that their family that put in the beginnings, the funding for the beginning of the church. And they had their pew was right in the front, and the only way to get to the pew was to come across the front. And so they invited me one Sunday, and I at home on Sunday mornings you dress, so I put on a three-piece suit, and the person told me don't be late, and I happened to be late that Sunday morning, so he's outside pacing up and down, waiting for me to get there. And he's in a pair of khakis and a polo shirt, because I guess they go right from there out to the golf course. And so I come in, I got a three-piece suit on, only person of color, and walked. I didn't even walk. I kind of snuck my way across the front of the altar and sat with the family. But I got a chance to see what the inside of St. Andrews looked like. And then, one of the presidents of the board of trustees asked if I'd be willing to preach there one Sunday, and that happened. And for the past several years, I've been going every other year, and then I've since honorably retired, sort of. I use that as a bargaining piece now to, can I preach every Sunday, every year? So,
good.
But
Good.
yeah.
It is. I wish I had pictures of, or we had pictures of both of the insides of both those churches, because as you said, Shinnecock's church is beautiful, and so is the Dune Church, that dark old wood that you can see, somewhat you can see the beams of, and just all that exposed
Yeah,
beams. It's beautiful.
It's an old
really
lifeguard
beautiful.
station.
It is? Dune Church?
That's where it was a life-saving station.
Really?
And because it's fascinating when if you go in and you look at their bulletin, it ends with a prayer for God to protect those who are going out into the sea.
That I know.
Yeah.
Yep. We still have a couple minutes. Can we show the First Presbyterian in Southampton too? Because that's another beautiful church. And are you there as sometimes?
I kind of fill in at the pulpit if someone if the pastor is away on vacation or doing study leave. I've been asked to fill in there a few times. Yeah.
And the connection between First Presbyterian Southampton and Shinnecock goes back hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, First Presbyterian Church was the first Presbyterian church in New York State. going back, well, there's an argument. 1640, Shinnecock, or Southampton and Southold. There's
Okay, that's right. I was trying to remember.
On that, so.
Okay, we'll leave that be then, 1640.
Yeah, but it's the year is 1640, and yeah, there are a number of members there whose families go back to the 1640s, and I've participated in the installation of a couple of pastors there, and I've told them, I said, if you get any trouble from folks from the 1640 club, you tell them you're good friends with somebody from the 1639 club.
There you go.
But the relationship is, it's been historic, and it's been a long one, and fortunately it's been a fairly positive relationship. Yeah,
It's good.
but that's what our faith is all about. I mean, if you look at the world's great religions, their primary statement of faith is God is one. And that's our journey back to that oneness for which we were all created. Shalom, if you will, that peace. Just absolutely amazing.
I love that we started today with Shalom and we're wrapping up today with Shalom too. I can't thank you enough for being here. It's been a privilege, and of course I learned so much. And what makes me chuckle is that when your dad was the head groundskeeper at Shinnecock, my dad was riding his bike over the hill at Shinnecock to get to the college and waving to your dad every morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special place. And again, I mean, that was one of the things he always talked about was relationships. And we would get yelled at if we didn't wave to somebody, and they waved at us. That wave is simply an acknowledgement that other person exists, and he insisted on that. I mean, he'd stop the car if we were riding. Somebody passed us on the res, and we knew him and didn't wave back. He'd stop the car and back up and said, "Now tell him hello."
Good for him, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you've carried that with you, and I bet you've passed that on not only to your children, but to your grandchildren. Thank you so much, Reverend Mike. It's been a privilege
Thank you.
to spend this time with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.